Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and I hope you're going to enjoy my thoughts about my man Charlie and what he did in his lifetime, why he did it, and why he had his family. And if you like what I have to say about Charlie and the universe, please do subscribe to my channel and be part of the Brown family and be forever with me and never leave. Welcome, everybody. Everybody who's in the chat room. This is a live this is a live chat, an open live chat, which is rare for me. Most of my chats are for patrons only, and there is a link below. You can click on Patreon and join and be part of of my Patreon group. And there's 2 live chats a week, which are patron only, but after that's over, I do make them public, so everybody gets to see everything I ever do. But this is an open live chat. So I will say this, please, folks who are in the chat room, I had a chat room closed down the other day by YouTube in the middle of it, so and it was violation of community guidelines. So I do request that please control yourselves. Please do not use swear words. Please do not say anything that is offensive to other people on religion, sexuality, any of that kind of crap. Please control yourself. And, let's just be polite to each other and focus on what the subject matter is. So anyway, you're glad I'm doing a live open. Well, I say it is a rare thing, mostly because a lot of times it kind of brings in problems because you can't control who's coming in and being involved. So it can be problematic. Oh, Delaney, thank you so much. Wait a minute. Bobo's here too. Hi, Delaney. Thank you very much. I always forget that if I do these open lives that their super stickers that show up. And I do appreciate that because I am an educational channel. Okay. What am I going to talk about? I want to say this. This is such a massive case. And there have been so many books written, movies, documentaries, YouTube videos, series, all of that. And this is going to be a video. I am not going to get into all the details of the crime. It would be insane. I would have to literally do like a 10-part series. And I don't do that kind of thing because I don't do history type things. I don't do journalism reporting type of things or stories. I do profiling. And the reason I decided to do this was because of the recent Netflix show that came out. And this was, hold on a sec. It was this. It's out now if you have Netflix. It's called Chaos, the Manson Murders. And it's based on this book written by Tom O'Neill, Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. Tom, I'm sure I got his name right. Tom is also in the documentary being interviewed. I will say this about the documentary. I found it, sorry, I always get hot very quickly here. The documentary, the Netflix documentary, I thought it was interesting. It was kind of like chaotic, like the title. And apparently Tom's book is also very chaotic. This show is probably going to be very chaotic as well because I don't actually think in a straight line. I don't. And some people get very confused with me. But that's the way I think. And kind of stream of consciousness type of thing. I don't do outlines because I just don't like doing outlines. Anyway, so this I kind of was okay with the documentary the way it was done. But it was a little confusing. I couldn't tell who was talking. Sometimes they showed a person speaking, but there wasn't a name underneath it. And I have face blindness, so I'm like, I don't know who that guy is. Give me a name. Anyway, it had interesting points. So there have been 2 major books written about the Manson murders, and this is one of them. But before that, we have the most famous book ever written, true crime-wise, maybe in Cold Blood, Truman Capote. Stands a good, they can vie for, first place. Although it's interesting that Truman Capote actually went on television and gave a terrible profile of who committed the Manson murders. So he was just so off. It was like, okay, dude, you're you're a writer, you're not a profiler. But this was done. This book, Helter Skelter, the true story of the Manson murders, was written by Vincent Bugliosi, who was the prosecutor, and Kurt Gentry, who I guess was his co-author and or ghost author, who's not so ghost-like, and Helter Skelter. I will say there are people who really, really love this book, Chaos, because they think that, well, what Tom will say about Bugliosi is that he was completely wrong about his theory that Manson did encourage these murders for a race war. And I agree with Tom on that. I don't think this had anything to do with a race war. I think that was nonsense. I think Bugliosi used it for the purposes of the trial and was useful. So I agree with that. But the rest of the Helter Skelter book, I really liked. I recommend reading that. It's very well written, extremely well written. And it's the reason it is one of the top books in true crime history. And somebody's going to say, well, did you read Chaos? And the answer to that is no, I didn't. Because I saw enough of what he thought here. And I did read some part of what I got free, and also people's viewpoints on his book. And he does exactly what I don't like. He gets a whole bunch of stuff, whether it be for him, it's a CIA involving in brainwashing, and he picks out all these things that there's some truth to, but then he conflates it, and then he doesn't even say it's actually the reason things happen. So he doesn't actually come to a conclusion or have an actual theory. He's just throwing things at the wall and letting other people try to say, oh my God, that's so true. See the eyes? I don't go for that kind of stuff. If you're a journalist, in my opinion, you should be pursuing truth. If you're not pursuing truth, you're just throwing a whole lot of crap at the wall. And he claims that Vincent, oh well, him. He just wrote this stuff to make money. Well, hell yeah, this dude made money too. So stop it all. So it's so funny because one of the things that Charles Manson said was, I'm here because I'm doing what I want to do. You're here for the money. And that, I think that might have been in this interview with 60 Minutes. And it was pretty funny because he had a lot of truths that he threw out in spite of himself, And so I'm going to link, I will link these videos. I think you should see them. That's one. And this is funny. Charles Manson Speaks the Truth. And this is Genius Mind. My God, the dude's got a genius mind. It's because I want you to understand kind of why Charles Manson was able to do what he did. Okay. And I think the problem is people don't really understand it. Now, I will say right up front, I think the CIA thing is garbage. I'm not even going to go there because it's garbage. Now, do I think the CIA was studying psychedelics, LSD, mind control? Well, yeah, sure I do. Do I think they would be interested in results? Absolutely, I do. That is entirely different than believing that the CIA was actually connected with Charles Manson and his family and caused the murders. That I don't believe, and there's no evidence of that. And Tom even says there's no evidence. So, sometimes you go places you don't need to be going. And so my show today is going to be on the psychology of Charles Manson, the psychology of the family members, and the psychology of society. I'm not going to get into the legal aspects because that would be a whole nother show. Should so-and-so have been, let out of the death penalty? Why did this person get this? That's a whole thing I'm just not going to do today because I'm more interested in the psychology in this particular instance. Usually I'm fascinated with evidence at crime scenes and proving who did it. In this case, there wasn't a whole lot of I'm going to take that back. Now I know what the evidence shows. I know who did it. So it's not a whodunit for me. At the time, the police didn't seem to know who done it. And this is one of the reasons Tom came up with so many of his suggestions that somehow Manson was being protected, because otherwise the police would have solved this right away. So that's not true. I want to get to that in a minute. I will go to that almost after I just say this, just because there's some people here going, I live in Australia and have no clue about this crime at all. Or I'm 19 years old. I've never heard of this, because this happened in 1969. And that's the way it goes. I mean, there's a lot of things we're not familiar with because we're not living in the area. We're not in the state or the country. We're not in the time. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone because I just realized I forgot to turn it off. Somebody's going to call. Okay. Anyway, so let me read you the short version from Wikipedia. Charles Manson was an American criminal. Absolutely. The guy, I want to point this out now. He had a horrible childhood. Now, sometimes when you have like serial killers, for example, and they'll complain about their childhood, and it turns out they're just pathological liars and they're not even telling the truth. He had a crappy childhood. And Charles Manson childhood sucked. And sometimes when you have a terrible childhood, obviously it's going to affect you. There's no way around. And this is one of the philosophical questions we can ask. Is it the fault of a psychopath that he becomes a psychopath? And this is interesting because, in a way, this is one of the issues that causes people to join Charles Manson's family, because there are unanswered spiritual questions, unanswered questions that they don't understand life. They don't understand our existence. And once you get people who do not understand why we're here, it opens the door to just about any theory. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. And I'm going to, again, want to say right up front, please do not go into any specific religious beliefs, because I know somebody's going to pop in and say, well, if you only believe this, you would have. Another time, I'm going to be talking about why people end up where they are. So how people become psychopaths, there's not an absolute on that. As a criminal profile, I like to say there is, but I don't have proof of that. So all I can say is it's like this to me. I do not believe in myself. I don't believe in the blank slate theory where the baby comes into the world with nothing and then everything is imprinted upon it, because that kind of creeps me out, in being that we have zero, any kind of identity. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that creeps me out. So you come into the world and every baby seems to come in with a different personality. It's really interesting. I mean, once you meet the baby is I look at my own children, they're different babies when they showed up. And then I personally, and I'm going to give a lot of philosophy and ideas during this show, which I hope that you will believe in, and then you will follow me and join my channel and click the button that says you will subscribe and join Patreon. But because of psychopathy, I'm like, what causes psychopathy? And is Charles Manson a psychopath? 1,000%. Dude's a psychopath. But what brought him there? Now, I believe there's this weird combo. And the weird combo to me is that you come into life with a personality. In other words, you have some kind of something that you are. Now, you can call it past life. You can call it genetics. I have got no clue, because I'm like the rest of people. I don't have answers. Yes, I do have answers. And if you stay long enough, you'll get those answers. Please subscribe to the channel. So anyway, the baby comes into the world. I have seen personalities in babies. So I believe there is some level of what that baby is. Type A, type B, whatever. And then that baby interacts with whomever they are around, especially the mother. And this is where I think you can have things like attachment disorder occur, where the child is not attached to people because the humans around them, especially the adults around them, are not very good adults. And they do not give the baby love and security. And so that baby starts saying, I don't really trust y'all, because you're leaving me here to cry for hours on end, and you don't care about me. And as I grow up into 1 and 2 years old, I found out that I could do the right thing and I still get slapped in the head for it. I don't trust you. You made the rules and then you break the rules. This is why I think creates psychopathy by the age of 5. That, and it's personality-wise driven too. I say it's a combo. It's almost like a hurricane. You have to have the right combination of things that mix together. So you could have a very quiet, peaceful personality, and they grow up in a horrible household, and they're like, they become social workers. And then you get the other one, and they become serial killers. And like, they're in the same household. What the heck? So I believe it's kind of a combo, but I cannot say I know exactly what causes it. He did grow up in a crappy home. Absolutely crappy. And so he was already becoming a criminal at a very young age. He was in juvenile institutions. His life was a mess. He was a psychopath, probably very young, and then had it emboldened, shall we say, through all of his criminal activities. He committed these crimes when he was young and ended up in institutions, one after the other, and incarcerations, and so on and so forth. That guy is a psychopath and a criminal psychopath. So I'm going to start with that concept that he's a criminal psychopath. So it says here he was an American criminal, a cult leader. He became a cult leader because, I'm going to get into that further, because he had some things about him that were alluring. And for those people who just like, I can't believe anybody would pay attention to this guy. A lot of people say, man, the guy was creepy. He was short. The guy was weird. I mean, why would anybody go for him? He was a musician. Now, not a successful musician, but he hooked up with the Beach Boys. And I want to point this out because I listened to his music. Let me show you a couple of them. Charles Manson, I'm going to link these below. They're all on YouTube. My World. Look at these, got 760,000. It's a nice song. I think so. Look at Your Game Girl. He wrote that. I kind of like it. I do. I Once Knew a Man. And then here we have Invisible Tears. He didn't write this one, but I really liked his voice. I was surprised. There's something about his voice. I'll tell you that. It was kind of a weird mix of country, soft rock, and Billie Holiday. I don't know what it is, but honest to God, if he had a decent producer and helped him do a good job in the studio, which apparently he tried to hook up. The Beach Boys tried to hook him up. He had contacts, and it was Melcher that he tried to hook him up with, and who liked him, but he had problems with him in the studio because he's a psychopath. And so the problem was his ability to go through with things in a proper manner. I think if he had been able to do that, you might have seen this guy be a music star, because I liked his voice. I really did. And this goes to show that, and I'm not even into that kind of music, which is really weird. I'm not. I like Bollywood, reggae, and soul. His music is not my music, but there's something about it. His voice, something about it was, I liked it. It took me in. And if I were a disaffected 17-year-old out in LA at the time and ran into this guy who looks like Jesus, when he didn't do the bug-eyed thing and the crazy-eyed thing, well, I went wrong way. Wait a minute. How do I get there? Sorry, I'm on everything's backwards, so it's like weird. So anyway, I don't think he's that bad looking. I'm not saying he's great looking, but I'm not saying he's bad looking. And he sits down with a guitar and he starts singing his songs, and he's got that voice, and I'm a 17-year-old fool. I might go for it. So when he comes to town, and there's a huge amount of history of him being in San Francisco and in LA and all the things he's done, hooking up with certain people in the music business and all that, which I'm not going to get into because it's so huge. And Go to Wikipedia, read it, read Helter Skelter. If you want to read the other guy's book, do that too. Watch the movie because there's a tremendous amount of information about how he ends up eventually in LA with a thing called the family, where he's gathered together a bunch of especially young girls, and some dudes too, to hang out with him, become his little cult, and drug use is rampant. And he uses those drugs himself, and he uses those drugs with his family members because drugs work. And I'm going to get into why drugs work in a little bit. But just let me, I wanted to read the rest of this crap. So anyway, he had a cult based in California in the late 1960s and 70s. Some cult members committed a series of at least 9 murders at 4 locations. That is correct. There was a murder that was of one man who was they were dealing with him at a personal level, and they killed him. And then there was the one that made the news, which was the horrific crime where Sharon Tate, the film actress Sharon Tate, was murdered along with 4 other people. That was huge. And then a day later, the La Biancas were killed. Those were 2 people. And then later on, they just knocked off a guy that worked with them because he pissed somebody off. So the 2 big ones were the stranger homicides, not the other ones, because, if your friends pissed you off, killing them. But going into a rich area and killing off celebrities, that's a big deal. And that's what it was so outrageous. And the crimes, if you haven't ever heard of the crimes, were so horrific. The amount of stabbing, strangling, they were grotesque, brutal crimes. And especially when we're talking about Sharon Tate, it's a beautiful young actress. She was 8 months pregnant, and they killed her while she was begging for please let me have my baby. It was gruesome beyond belief, and that's why it was so shocking. And nobody could understand how anybody could do this kind of thing. So there were 4 crimes committed, 2 of total strangers and wealthy people and famous people who people in LA couldn't even fathom, and 2 others who they kind of ignored. But those 2 others were important because the police could have solved the crime quicker with the other, especially with the first crime. I'll get to that. Okay, I'm going to stop for just a second to check any comments before I get into more of the psychology. Queen of My Castle. I read Helter Skelter. That's what made me obsessed. Interesting. Okay, it was extraordinarily well written. It is. And I'm not real fond of true crime books, only because most of the time I get bored because I'm a profiler. Not other people aren't going to get bored. I have a few favorites. Helter Skelter is excellent. Kung Fu. Wasn't Sharon Tate living in the home that Terry, the Beach Boys producer, was living in when he said no to working with Manson? Okay, this is where this is a little confusing. And this is going to go to the motive of the murders. Yes. So what we have is a guy named Terry Melcher was a producer. And the Beach Boys were hooked up with Terry Melcher, and they were like, "Hey, Terry, we got this dude, not the crazy dude in the middle, but this I can't get the hands right. This one, we got this guy. He's got a great voice, and he's going to be good." Terry Melcher apparently hooked up with him, tried to like him, and again tried to think he was going to produce his music, but decided not to. Yes, it was Terry Melcher's previous home. But Terry Melcher was no longer living there. There was another man who owned the home, and he had rented it out too. Okay, so let me get it straight. So he had, let me see if I can find his name. Because it gets it's so complicated and so many names in here. The chaos it's gonna be right here. Have patience. Chaos is going to be here. Just let me roll down to the actual. Okay, Tate Murders. All right. So the location where Sharon Tate, the beautiful actress, got murdered at. Let's see who was living there at the time. JC. Okay, it's a little interesting how this all works out. So the occupants were Tate, age 26, who was 8.5 months pregnant. Her friend and former lover, Jay Sebring, who was 35 years old, a noted celebrity hairstylist. So Sharon Tate came to Hollywood and hooked up with this Jay Sebring. He adored her. And then she dumped him for Polanski because Polanski was a producer and was much more interesting than the hairdresser dude. So she dumped him for Polanski. And then, but Jay being he had a thing for her. So he thought, okay, well, she's hooked up with Polanski, but we all know that Polanski is cheating on her all over the place. So eventually she'll get fed up with it. She'll come back to me. Anyway, theoretically. And also so Polanski wasn't there. He was off in London and she had to return home earlier because she couldn't fly after a certain point. And so Polanski was in London and probably screwing around with other people, but at least his wife was back in the house. And Jay Sebring was looking after her, which is not lovely. And also a friend, 32-year-old Frykowski, and his girlfriend, 25-year-old Abigail Ann Folger, that's the heiress to the Folger coffee fortune. So they were there. 4 of them were there, and then there was a caretaker there on the property. But this guy came over to visit him, an 18-year-old guy named Stephen Parent. So that evening, what happened was Stephen Parent came over to the caretaker's house. It was separate, and he was supposed to watch the dogs on the property. That's all he was supposed to watch for the owner, not the renters, which was Polanski. And so apparently this guy came over to sell him a clock radio or something, and because he was this kind of like 18-year-old kid who was just he was like, "Hey, you want to buy this?" And the guy said no. So he left, and as he was leaving, the Manson group showed up, shot him in the driveway, stabbed and shot him in the driveway, then went in the home and killed all 4 of the people in the home. So that's how it worked. But was the whole question of, did it have anything to do with the producer who no longer lived there, that he thought he was there? No, he knew he wasn't there. That wasn't the issue. And one of the things you're going to have to understand with Charles Manson, which is what people don't get, is, and some people do, actually, if I went back to Benny, thank you for being here. Benny said in the chat room, well, his whole mind was chaotic. And this is an interesting point, because if you have a mind that, first of all, doesn't follow the rules, psychopathic people don't follow the rules. They will latch onto something and then toss it, and latch onto something else and toss it. Doesn't mean they actually believe in anything that they latched onto, or they care that they tossed it. So that Melcher was once a dude that dumped him and didn't let him have his musical career. Was that the reason he went and committed these crimes? Probably has nothing to do with it. Could it have been one thing in the back of his mind? He said, "Oh, Melcher messed me up and he used to own that house." Could he have gone there for that reason? Sure. But you cannot get inside the mind of a psychopath to that extent, because you waste your time doing it. So it's a great question, though. Been so long since I read about him. Well, it's not much of a refresher because I can't even remember all the crap. It's so overwhelming. It really is, as far as the details go. Okay, so just another Polanski interview. There's a lot of really interesting stuff. If you want to get into the details of literally everything to do with the crime, have at it. It's going to be a lot of stuff. Look at Luigi Mangione. Oh, okay. Taylor, you're not wrong about that. Luigi Mangione is a person who has made a decision to recently to kill a CEO of a health conglomerate. And he has claims for why he did it, which none of them make sense. So is the real reason he did it because he wanted attention? And he picked somebody he thought would get him attention? Probably. But there's people like, "Oh my God, Luigi Mangione is my hero because I hated the guy, Brian Thompson, who was the CEO head. I hate insurance companies." I'm kind of with him on that. I do too. But I don't think Luigi Mangione picked Brian Thompson for any actual particular reason other than it served his purposes. I like that question. That was excellent. That was so good. So good. That's why I do live shows a lot of times, because I just love commentary like this. Desperate for attention, revenge, and notoriety. Yeah, one of the things with psychopaths is their failures. To a great extent, their failures in life. He failed in his music career. Now he failed in everything else too. So his music career was just one thing. Well, I will say, he could have made it, maybe. And the question is, if he had made it as a musician, if he had gotten a chance, would he have gotten a cult and gotten people killed? Probably not. He might today be somebody that everybody goes like, oh my God, I just absolutely love Charles Manson. He's fantastic. And he could have his cult of girls that he could just have sex with and not tell to kill anybody. I don't know that he would have developed a killer cult had he been successful in music. But he wasn't. So, the problem sometimes comes into is when we're not successful in something in life. Is that a good excuse for the next chapter? Yeah. Kaylin, he would have probably been hotel trashing a-hole. That is probably correct. Oh my God, that's probably true. Let me go back up. I want to just back up a few things before I go on to the next thing about the police investigation. Then I'm going to get into the psychology. You like Tom's book, fascinating but scattered. Yeah, he definitely identified weird info, but Sally didn't put it together. Yeah, and that's the whole point. He doesn't actually have a way to put it together. There is zero evidence that CIA had anything to do with what Manson did. That they were interested in what Manson did. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with. I'm looking at my eyes now. I'm like, am I opening my eyes too widely these days? Anyway, we're all interested in how mind control works. The Army clearly uses mind control. How do they do that? Well, okay, let's take a look. Let's go back to the Vietnam War. You got young 18-year-olds, never did a violent thing in their life. All they were looking forward to was, maybe I'll go to college. Maybe I'll become a plumber. Maybe I'll get married next year. I don't know. I love my dog. Their number came up. They went to Vietnam and they killed a crap load of people. How did the government get first of all, these young people to go to a country they'd never heard of, to be involved in a war they knew nothing about, that wasn't protecting the borders of America, and kill a bunch of people that were above the line as opposed to below the line, as if those people were incredibly different, and kill people and kill people and kill people. And of course, anybody who's running a military unit wants to be sure that they have people who are willing to do their bidding. That has been true since the beginning of time. And in my opinion, it's kind of like this. And this is just, I'll start with part of my programming here. You have to make people equivalent to cockroaches. You do, in the sense that, or mice or rats or whatever. You have a little mouse that runs into your house, and you're like, oh, it's a cute little mousey. And of course, I happen to love mice, and I don't mind rats because I've owned rats as pets. And I did also have dubia cockroaches, which I bred. So I kind of like roaches too. They're big roaches, and you can pet them. But anyway, I'm weird. Okay, so anyway, I kind of like those animals, but they're controlled in the controlled circumstances. So if you have a couple mice as pets, they're fun and they're delightful. Rats are also very smart and intelligent. One day you wake up and the freaking mice have eaten everything you own. They've destroyed your clothing. They've broken in all your food in the cabinet. Rats are just ripping up your home. Cockroaches, you come in the night, turn on your lights, and in America, they're not the big cockroaches that kind of walk around. They're like little things that scatter, and they're like thousands of them scatter. You don't like those mice and rats and roaches anymore. You're like freaked out. You're like, oh, this is disgusting. And at that point, you will take a blowtorch to them because they are now the enemy. They are the enemy. On an individual basis, they might not be the enemy. They might be your friend, your family. But on a large scale where your life is now being um, impeded or your sense of safety, your sense of normalcy, your sense of what your home, the walls, they've all been invaded. So you're willing then to kill. And that's what happens. Sometimes when somebody invades your homeland, you're willing to kill because that's the way it is. And please do not go politics here, because I do not want to see it on here and I will block you out. So let's not go there. But that's the way things work. But also, if you're sent to another location and you're told these people, the cockroaches, these people aren't the cockroaches, you're to work with these people who are acting just as cockroachy as the people across the border, North Korea, South Korea, Vietnam, whatever. You're doing the bidding of somebody, a cult leader, which might be the government. But that's the way it has been since man entered the planet, and has gone into groups, and the groups have fended for their territory, essentially. So that the CIA would be interested in best ways of controlling people, not objecting to that. But I don't think it had a damn thing to do with them controlling Charlie Manson and controlling Manson's followers. No, might they have been interested in the results? Surely. But that's why I don't like his book, because I don't like it when you throw a lot of crap out and try to inspire people into making connections that don't need to be made connections. So that's my long answer to that. Just going back up here for a little bit. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Bloodbath. Aw, $10. Thank you. This is an educational channel, and so I do appreciate it. I certainly do. And Lady Jane, you too. I'm going back. Oh, thank you for being you. Okay. She's joined the family. Thank you, Lady Jane. I truly appreciate it. So I'm going back up here just because I know I missed a lot of stuff. Mary, oh my goodness. Mary, thank you very much. Hello to all. Mary has been around for a long enough time to be a very good patron, and but not so long that she's been here forever. Thank you, Dogs Discussions. I appreciate that again so much. You always have been wonderful. I'm really going back a long ways. I think I've gotten that far. Okay, so now I go to the bottom again. Okay, now the police stuff. I want to talk about this. One of the reasons, the thing that I guess Tom. Let me get my name straight. Okay, hold on a second. Let me get my name straight. So Tom has said in his book is that the police did such a terrible job that there must have been something else behind there, like the CIA was involved in it, because that's why they ignored things. That is not true. Bugliosi's book, he very quickly shot that down, and I totally agree with him because I've worked with police departments long enough. What happened was there were reasons to connect crimes. For example, the first crime was Hinman, was just one guy that, I'm not going to get into the whole case, but kind of pissed off Charlie. And so he sent his people over and it didn't go well. So, wait a second. So Hinman got sliced and diced. And they wrote on the wall in blood, political piggy. Okay? Political piggy. You see that political piggy Hinman. Then when they went and did the Tate murders, they put in blood, pig. Then next day on the LaBianca murders, they put in blood, death to pigs. Now, you would think pig, pig, pig. People stabbed up and pig, pig, pig. What's similar? I mean, it seems horrifically obvious, but it wasn't at the time. Why not? It's because one was one department, another was another department. Then even in the same department, they might be working on two cases, but their different teams are working on two cases. I remember there was a case that I was working on in Maryland that I thought was connected to another case. And I was talking to the detective, and he says, I don't know about that case. And I said, lean to your left, because Detective so-and-so right there next to you, it's his case. And he's like, oh, he had no idea about the other detective's case. No clue. Because that's the way a lot of times police departments work. Not all police departments, but unfortunately, it is a problem. Egos are huge. It's my case. I work on my case. A lot of times things aren't discussed, especially between departments. So the Hinman case happened. It was just one dude. And they like, whatever they wrote didn't matter. And they didn't tell the next department with the huge tape case. So it took a while before somebody said, pig, maybe we should. So it took a while for them to figure things out. Also, the other thing, which Bugliosi properly said in his thing, was that when you're working a case, the problem is there's so many theories and so many possible suspects. In the tape case, there was the caretaker. He was the only one alive. Everybody else is dead on the property. The guy who came to visit the caretaker's dead. 4 people in the house are dead. The caretaker's fine. He's like, what? Something happened? They're like, let's take you in. Because they're like, why are you alive? And it's like, oh, okay. Because he lived enough of a distance from the main house where he might not have heard things, or if he heard things, he was too drugged up or whatever the hell he was doing to pay any attention. He had loud music on, maybe. Who the hell knows? The guy had nothing to do with anything. But he was a great suspect because he's the only one alive. Then they looked into other possibilities because people used drugs. Was it that? Was it a guy came over to sell drugs and they pissed him off and he lost his mind? They had lots of possibilities. And when you when you read Helter Skelter, you'll see the different avenues they took, which had reasonable reasons to think maybe that could be the reason. So it took a while to connect the 3 cases, and Charlie Manson ended up in the middle of all of them. And then the whole thing about the family living out on their creepy ranch place where all the girls were, and they were doing tons of other crimes. By the way, that's how they got caught, was the other crimes they were committing. Oh, but Charlie was a criminal of the nth degree. Okay, he committed almost every crime in the book. So it was just, they finally caught him on something else. And then people started opening their big little mouths and ratting him out, the snitching all over the place. And so then they said, maybe it's Charlie and his little family. And so that's when it all came to, they came to figure out what happened. And now, so that's basically the whole story of the case. Then they went to trial, people go to prison. Charlie died in prison. A lot of the other people the women, I think one is out now, the rest, and one, and I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole nother show. I want to get into the psychology. All right. So the psychology. How did Charlie manage to entice all of these heavily women, but also some men, into doing these horrific things? Before I do that, I want to say this about the Bugliosi claim that it was a race war. This has nothing to do with that. The problem was Charlie shot a guy that was black, and then he thought he killed him, but because he didn't kill him, but another black guy ended up dead. The thought was it was the Black Panthers, or that the guy he had shot was a Black Panther. So the idea was, okay, well, we'll blame the crime on Black Panthers. And then the claim that in the court was Bugliosi basically was saying was that the reason he killed off the white people, that rich white people, was to blame it on the Black Panthers to start this fake race war so his followers would jump in. Kind of like Jim Jones went down to, Guyana and had a story. So did Charlie have a story that he promoted as part of his why we should kill off people to start a race war? Sure. It was among his many stories. Is it the real reason? Probably not. It just, but it'll work because he did promote some of that crap, but he promoted so much crap. And this is the point I'm going to get at. So to believe stuff, you got to be careful. Now for the courtroom, it worked. It was useful. But is it the truth? And I will say this at the end of, I'm going to read this, at the end of the movie, the documentary Chaos, the guy who is doing it, and I forgot who he was talking to because I said it was kind of confusing, but I liked what he had to say. He said this: they don't want to hear how mundane this story actually is, how not a mastermind Charlie actually was. In his paranoid delusions, his miscalculations, it was just blunder after blunder after blunder with his criminal mindset. But people, they said, the problem with the story in particular is people are very fond of their fantasies, that conspiracy theories, to make anything more interesting than it actually is, rather than this loser dude who's a psychopath who said a bunch of stuff that people followed. And this is what I want to get into, because there is a reason people follow Charlie Manson. Okay, but there's no big conspiracy theory. Sorry, Tom, I don't go for it. The CIA did not work with him to do anything. That they might have been interested is another whole issue. You can go about the whole, no. Because there are people out there who get people to follow them. And this is what I want to talk about. So now I'm going to get into the mindset of Charlie Manson and the mindset of his followers. What in the world could get a lot of young women to stab up a whole bunch of innocent people? So that's what this is what the whole thing is about. But I will check your comments right before I go to more things. Thank you very much, Julie. I appreciate that. Awesome. Wait a minute. Thank you, Julie. I've read Scott Peterson was compelled in situational circumstances he found intolerable rather than being a predatorial motivated personality. Okay. All right. Scott Peterson is a situational killer. He's a psychopath who decided his wife was in his way. We know some other people just like that. They get rid of their wives because they're in their way, especially if they're having babies and those babies tie them down and they're like, yeah, I'm done with that. So it's a situational murder. They're not serial killers, but the situational murders. Charlie Manson's not a situational murder. He's a whack job who is all over the place and likes doing just about literally everything. He never killed anyone. I think you're talking about Charlie. He shot somebody. He slashed somebody. But you are correct. Theoretically, he himself did not go in and stab up and shoot anybody at the Latate crime. He was at, as far as I know, the La Bianca crime. He may have tied them up, done some part of that. Now, mind you, all these stories are really questionable. And then he left and said, take care of it. He slashed up Hinman supposedly and then said, take care of it. I will say this. I think Charlie got more off. Charlie didn't have a problem with killing people. I think he got more off than other people killing for him. That was just a big, huge ego boost for him. So yes, but that's why he got nailed with conspiracy and homicide, because the theory is they wouldn't have done it if he hadn't gotten them to do it. Although I will say this, Tex Watson, I think people undervalue. Tex Watson was a male who actually has a very bland background. It doesn't seem like a guy who's got many problems at all. Joined up with him. I can't do I'm having issues. How about this? Okay, joined up with him and was a smart guy. And the two of them together were more the perpetrators of getting everything happening. Tex was actually at both the Tate scene and the Bianca scene and was the lead in killing all of them. I don't know why Tex Watson, I think it's Tex Watson. Am I going to get this right? I mean, I'm always concerned that I forget the names because I forget names. Let's see. Watson, Tex Watson. And the Tate murders, Watson took Atkins, Krenwinkel, and Kasabian to the house. He later claimed that Manson had instructed him to go into the house and told him to destroy everyone in it and to do it as gruesome as you can. And Manson told the women to do as Watson instructed him. And Watson was truly the leader at both scenes. I think he was at the second scene. Well, let me see. I'm not sure he was at the second scene. Hold on a second. Let me go to La Bianca. Maybe he wasn't at the second scene. No, he was at the second scene. Watson, I think, people give him a break. Watson is a cold-blooded psychopathic killer. He wasn't just doing whatever he told him to. He liked what he did. He controlled the women at the scene. And he committed the majority of the violent crimes. the violent deaths were committed by Tex Watson. So for any people out there saying that, oh, Tex was just one of the guys, no, he was a leader. So he was the general, and who comes under the general? I don't know my army stuff and my military stuff. He was second in command and was given the job to be second in command. Perhaps the general stays back at the, at headquarters and says, go out. And he goes out and he conducts the actual military action. That's Tex Watson. And how the heck he got away with just being this side player. I don't get it. Tex Watson was the most violent. And the girls, I don't think, would have done what they did without Tex Watson doing the majority of the killing. And then after he basically killed people, they came in and went, okay, me too. So what they did was grotesque and horrible, but only because Tex had done a lot of the major part to begin with. So let's stop giving Tex Watson a break. Anyway, oh yes, he has. He's made babies while he's in prison. I forever am against any kind of conjugal visits. I think it's atrocious, especially when that. Does anybody consider the poor child? When the child is born, they get to be the progeny of a brutal psychopathic murder. Thanks a lot, prison system. I always remember this story, and I can't say it's absolutely true, but I remember because it meant a lot to me. Because I have one adopted child. I have two children who are biological, one adopted, who I adopted at 5 years old. And there's a lot of things that, a lot of people who have been adopted think they should have the rights to know who their biological parents were. And some adopted parents agree with that. Some adopted parents think that maybe that's something left in the past because there's a reason that you ended up having me as your parent. So anyway, there was this kid, supposedly, who bugged his parents for years that I want to know who my dad is, and my biological dad is, and they refused to tell him. And he got angry at them, and he separated himself from him. Said, "I'm not," And finally, they gave in and told him. And they said, Charles Manson. Maybe you don't want to know whether that's a true story or not. I'm not sure, but I like the story. So, this is. I want to wait a minute. At the rate that I'm starting to sound like Charlie, I might be. Well, I was looking for that. Caitlin says, I've been fair my whole life about DNA. I'm not a big DNA fan. I personally, I think that DNA is what gives you. I think this whole concept that you're connected to everything in your past and everybody who, just because people brought you into this world physically, I'm not all that fond of that being, that defines you. I don't think that's the only thing that defines you. But I'm speaking as a person who has an adopted son who is now 40-some years old, and I love him, and he loves me, and he's just as much my son as the other two children are. So, and could something in his past help create him, his whole self? Yes. But then if you believe in reincarnation, you could say the last life did that too. So I always look at it this way, actually. I always think it's kind of funny because somebody will say something like that I'm angry because my ancestors were slaves. And your ancestors weren't slaves. Your ancestors were slave masters, because I'm black, you're white. And I'm like, yeah, that is terrible. But what if we believe in reincarnation? What if your ancestors were the slave masters and my ancestors were the slaves? Then what? It's an interesting concept, which goes into how we can start wondering what reality is. And I will get to that. Melcher used to live there. Yes. The whole thing is, no. Understand that he was aware of the house, the location of the house, but it doesn't necessarily mean he killed the people because Melcher lived there, but he did know the house. People, again, you cannot get in the mind of a psychopath. A lot of times they just do things because they do things. So, and they will also sometimes say why they did things and it won't even be the truth. Or they'll say they didn't do it and that won't be the truth either. So you have to I already did that, by the way. Please go check, in case you want to know, go to the search on YouTube and you put in Profiler Pat Brown, put in put in that and you'll come up with the case on that. I did do that. Yeah, I did do that one. Okay, so let's go forth with I want to go to the mentality of the age, the family members, and Charlie himself. All right, now, before I do that, I want to point this out. There's another movie which I personally really like, and it's called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's a Tarantino movie. Some of Tarantino's fans hated this movie. I did not hate this movie. I loved this movie. And I thought it was an excellent movie. And it goes back to 1969 and the whole era of 1969, the time frame of actors, Hollywood, and also the Manson murders. It doesn't stick with reality, shall we say. It mixes fiction with reality in a kind of an interesting way. And so I personally very much liked it. And also, just to say, hold on a second, I'm looking through all my, I'm trying to find the thing on, what the heck happened to it? Once Upon a Time, there it is. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 2019 comedy drama by Quentin Tarantino. And just to let you know who's in there, because it's absolutely amazing, it is Leonardo DiCaprio plays the actor who's going downhill. Brad Pitt is his stuntman. And Margot Robbie is Sharon Tate. And she's, of course, gorgeous, as Sharon Tate was. And it's really good. And the ending is kind of the way you wish the ending was in real life. But really interesting. What I liked most about it was that I felt they caught the feeling of the era right. Now, this is important, the feeling of the era. Why do I say this? Okay, I was in Hollywood 4 years later. There I am in Hollywood, hanging out. And this is one of my photo shot. I was at a photo shoot. I got these pictures done for my portfolio. I was 19 years old, and yeah, I don't look like that anymore. Do my legs look as good as that anymore? Probably not. Life sucks when you get older. So anyway, yes, okay, you can want to look, dudes, you want to look at it again? Oh, some females, yes, I have great legs. Okay, but I point this out not to show you my picture, but to point out that I was there 4 years after this happened. I stayed for 1 year in Hollywood. I was in quite a number, I don't know how many dozens of films that I was an extra in. I did not do well in Hollywood. I refused to do the casting couch, which completely just like shot my career into the, and why did it do that? And this is important. When I arrived in Hollywood, I considered myself a really good-looking young girl at 19. I was, I think, pretty hot. And I thought I had a chance in the movies. Now, mind you, I had no skill. I never acted in my life. So it wasn't like I had been in theater at the high school or anything and done all the musicals. I really never done anything. And now, could I have made it in Hollywood? Sure. And but the problem was, when I arrived, I looked around and guess how many girls looking really good were on the street as well as me. There were tons of pretty girls out there. So I'm walking down the street. I'm like, dang, right and left, there's another good looking girl. Young, attractive, and wanting to be in Hollywood. Now, I decided when I drove to Hollywood that I would not do the casting couch. I just made that a decision. The other girls who drove to Hollywood or caught the bus to Hollywood didn't make that decision. They're like, yeah, we'll do that because I want to get into the movies. And I would talk with girls and they were having sex with everybody because that was the way you at least got a chance. And this was the time of free love. This is when the pill came out. And so back before the pill, at least this is the way I remember it. I want to talk about reality in a minute, how we see things different. Before that, I remember people saying, I would only have sex with my fiance, my husband, my absolute, had to be in love. When the pill came out, they're like, yeah, okay, we'll just have sex. We'll just have sex because it's beautiful, because it's a way to connect with people. And now people have sex because they're like, it's gotten very, very like, let's just hit that. And, it's gotten kind of grim, shall we say. They're having sex for almost like personal masturbation, as not even connecting with the other person, just using the other person as something to have sex with. It's got kind of a very negative edge. But back in the free love days, it wasn't quite that scuzzy, shall we say. It really wasn't as scuzzy. It was just very free. Just like, since if I do get pregnant, I can get an abortion, so I'm just going to go do it. And it's fun to do that. And I just like to hook up with these different guys and we have a great time. And it was a weird era. So I want you to understand, if you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you get a lot of that feel. When I was there 4 years later, I had that same feel. But I made that decision, and I wasn't getting any work because the producers wanted to sleep with me and the actors wanted to sleep with me. And I said no, and I just didn't get anywhere. So a year went by and I finally said, screw this. And I went back home, went back to college. But when I talked to the other girls, they were perfectly willing. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to go to Las Vegas next week because I'm going to go with so-and-so, which is an actor or producer. And they knew they were going to go there and have a lot of sex because that's why they were there. And they would drink a lot and they would do drugs. And I went to, and this is, and I think this is true. I hope I'm not making up the location, but far as I remember, it was Richard Dreyfuss's home. He was away. He wasn't there. Now, this may be totally garbage. I was at some home that I thought was Richard Dreyfuss's home, but he was away in Europe or something. And I remember being downstairs and there was a glass wall, which you could see into the swimming pool, and girls were swimming around in the swimming pool, some of them not so close. And therefore you could look at and see them going by. And I was downstairs with this guy who was a producer, and they were passing around drugs. And they passed this bowl to me of drugs. And I think it was Quaaludes because that was very popular. And I was like, no, I'm not going to have any. And he said, well, go ahead. And the girls were like, and why were they doing that? Because they knew they were going to have sex with somebody there in order to further the career. And therefore they took the drugs to take that edge off. And so they were willing to do pretty much anything. And so that was kind of the atmosphere. And so a lot of girls who also in that era, not only the people who were there for the going into Hollywood, but those who were following music, those who just wanted to get away from their families and go up to San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, and experience life through drugs. They were doing LSD. They were smoking a lot of weed and a lot of LSD, doing LSD. They were doing all kinds of stuff. It was a free-for-all. And if you don't understand that, you don't understand how Charlie got some of his girls. These are girls who left home, were out on their own. They shouldn't have been out on their own. They went to California with no skills, with no place to live. And they were winging it. And they ended up in situations where they had to depend on somebody else for everything. So there was a lot of prostitution they got into. And they got into drug dealing. They got into just hooking up with some guy to sleep in his house. And they got hooked up with Charlie Manson. So this is the way it worked. So when you say, how did he get all these girls? Because they were available. And because he had a kind of magnetic personality, because he could sing, he could give them drugs. He drew them in. Now, I don't know how good he was in bed. He slept with everybody. I don't know if he was a good lover. Maybe he was. Maybe they're like, hey, he ain't bad, dude. I don't mind having sex with you, especially after I smoke some weed, especially after I had some LSD. I'll do it with you. And besides, it gives me a place to stay. Girls sell themselves a lot in these situations. Sometimes men sell themselves as well, young men. So that he could gather together a bunch of people who were wanted to take drugs, didn't mind having the sex, and needed a place to fit in, to feel like they were part of something. It's not unlikely that he could gather a group. There were a lot of groups. Charlie wasn't the only one with a group. There were little communes. There were apartments with 6 or 8 people living in them, trying to make it in Hollywood. There were all kinds of this kind of stuff. There were brothels. I mean, all this stuff was going on. It was one place or the other, especially if you had no place to go. So he gave them a place to go, and they eventually ended up on the ranch with him and have a whole bunch of people, and they all had a place to live. And the crime, they were committing crimes because they're already estranged from society and doing stuff that society didn't approve of. And the society didn't like those hippie girls and those hippie boys. They just didn't like them. So they already felt like we're We're a different group of people. So those were the people around him. They were people who were disaffected teens who left home and were looking for anything to be a part of. And Charlie gave them a place to be a part of it. Now, how did he do that? I want to talk about, it's not so uncommon. You know, he was physically in front of them, but we see this happen all the time. Charlie essentially channeled. Now, when you ask me, what am I talking about? That he's a channeler. Charlie experimented with a lot of different spiritual religious ideas, including Scientology, heavily. And he then created over time his own ability to be a guru. And as a guru, what does a guru do? A guru gives thoughts. A guru explains things, the universe. They explain things. And they can say, I represent Jesus Christ. I represent the devil. What do they actually represent? Does it matter what they represent? And this is one thing Charlie said. Let me see if I found what Charlie said. Is that it? No sense makes sense. And this is the whole point. You don't have to make sense. And as a matter of fact, if you do make too much sense, people don't like it. They want you to have no sense, because therefore it leaves the door open to whatever you want to believe. Channelers do this all the time. I want to say this, and I'm not fond of channeling, by the way. Why am I not fond of channeling? Because I see it on the internet, hundreds of thousands of viewers, and they will be asked to channel, tell us about whatever. And they will tell about whatever. They can channel dead people. They can channel spiritual ideas, whatever the hell they're channeling from beyond. Somehow they're able to contact somebody from beyond and bring this out to people. And I see people buy this stuff hook, line, and sinker, and like, oh my God, thank you so much. They're just amazed with it. Here's an example. Here's a fellow, just came on. I just saw this guy. I don't know if he's a channeler, but he does a show called Echoes of Existence. He only has 35,000. He's got half the viewers I do, but he got 740,000 views plus on this one video. I can guarantee I never made anything like that on a video. And the video is, it took me 20 years to realize what I'll tell you in 14 minutes. And do people love to be found out the secret of life in 14 minutes? You betcha. So he talks about the meaning of life. I'm going to try to read you some of what he says, because I don't usually play other people's videos. This is at point 10. Okay. See, if you're looking for any kind of perfection or satisfaction, deep satisfaction in the things of appearance, the things that appear, the solid material things, it's not there. It's there within. That's why I said to go within to seek solitude and find inside. It's already there. It doesn't come out. It's in this world because the world is of senses. Senses are limited. You can only see as far as you can, only hear as much as you can, only taste as much as you can. Between time and space, everything is limited. Happiness is a satisfaction in the pleasures. They're going to be limited. Only in your being are you full and whole in what you're doing. Okay, I could go on. That's what he's saying. And 800,000 people are going, oh my God, that's brilliant. Really? Is that really brilliant? Okay, I'm going to channel for you right now. Let's see. I want to talk about, I'm just trying to remember. Let me get into the space. All right. I want to talk about the universe, and I want to talk about energy. Now, energy, the universe is nothing but energy. Energy flows through the entire universe. It flows through space. It flows through planets. It flows through plants, and it flows through animals, animal beings, human beings. It flows through all of us. We're all nothing but energy. However, in this world, we have a body, and the body, our bodies actually cause us to have boundaries. Now, energy itself does not have boundaries, but because we have bodies and sometimes the energy seems like it cannot go from inside the body to outside the body as well as it could if the body didn't exist. And that's what causes us to have problems with other human beings. Their body blocks their energy. Our body blocks our energy. Yes, if we persist, we can sometimes be able to have that energy flow out, connect with the other person. But sometimes it's just very difficult to do because we are so physically oriented. We feel, and we feel like this is us, and we don't understand that us is not just here. Us is everywhere because energy expands. But we don't realize that. And when we pass away, this is where, when we lose our physical bodies, we then, for the first time, realize that we are nothing but energy and there are no boundaries anymore. So one of the exciting things after we finish this life is that we are now connected fully with the universe and every other person who is no longer in a body. And it's amazing how our energies then can intersect, the things we can experience and learn throughout, for the fact that we're part of that whole universal energy. It's amazing. So we should realize now in our own bodies, sometimes when we meditate, it opens up a portal and we're able to reach out further than we've ever reached out before when we're just on a regular level. But if we actually can spend our time in meditation, that portal will open up and we will understand that we are not our bodies, that we are energy, and we are the universe, and the universe is us. Please subscribe to Pat Brown and my channel. Please subscribe, support me, and I will bring you more wisdom of the universe. Now, what you think of that? I just made that shit up. Did you like it? Are you describing? No, I'm not describing what Charlie believes. Charlie doesn't really believe anything. Charlie's just making stuff up, as I was. No, it's not The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but I do love The Portal in the Closet. I gotta admit. Pat, the energy wizard. Now, I'm going to point out something else that I think is very important for you to understand when I just did that stuff. I'm just going back up here to see what. I saw something else up here. There it is. Oh, wait a minute. Why does this not click? I can't click. Cheryl, thank you very much. Cheryl just sent me a super sticker, which now is I can't reach. Oh, there we go. Oh. Wait a minute. Let me go back up here a second and thank everybody who, I think I was at yours last time. I hate to ignore people. I really do. Thank you very much, Amy. So I'm not used to this stuff, but I want to appreciate. Thank you, Cheryl Smith. Very, very kind of you. Don't believe half of what I say. Kung Fu Panda, thank you for allowing us to join you today. Give my regards to Cinnamon. If you haven't been on my regular lives, you won't know what that means. But Grok, I did a thing and asked Grok who Pat Brown was and it said I have 3 children, and they named my first 2 children, and then they named my son, whose name is David. They named him Cinnamon, and he turned into a female. And so, it's like so everybody's like, "How's Cinnamon doing?" And my son is like, it was pretty funny. So anyway, let me just check this, and then I'm going to go on to. Thank you very much, Julie. That's very, very generous of you. Very generous. Okay, and one more here. Wait a minute. I gotta be nice. Oh, there's Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl. I knew I saw you go by. Thank you. Okay, I want to talk about what I just said. Like seeking hot air, pure nonsense. I simulated it well. Now here is the point about that, though. Not everything I said is necessarily wrong. Okay, there are belief systems, and I'm not sure where my beliefs exactly lie, but I have spent time, and again, don't go religious on me. I spent time with Christianity. I spent a lot of time in India, so I have a lot of Hindu friends. I understand Hinduism. So I understand science. So there's a lot of things that are unknown to us. They just are. They're unknown to us. Things that human beings do not understand and wish they did. All of us, no matter what our belief system is, still do not really know where we're going after we die. And we hope like hell it's someplace besides hell. but we want to, some people say, I don't care if I'm just dead, I won't know it. I'm not happy with that. I'm like, well, then if I don't remember anything, and my kids don't remember anything, what's the point of being on earth at all? What's the point of having civilization? What's the point of doing anything? It's just a big fat joke. I don't want it to be a joke. I want to know that I go on to something else. Maybe I'll eventually forget this life because I can't remember anything from yesterday anyway. And we all eventually forget a lot of stuff. We retain certain things that make us who we are, but we do it in a way that's not terrifying. And most people don't like to think that the people that have passed on before us, especially if they're people we love, especially if they're our children, that they just don't exist. They never mattered. So most of us have a problem with that, which is one of the reasons religion is such an important thing to people, spirituality. They want to know, what does this universe mean? Our universe is amazing. It's the most unbelievable place. The simple fact that every day the sun is there, that we wake up every morning, that we're able to build buildings and do art and have children, and all of our lives it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. For me, I have to believe there's meaning behind it, and that there's power behind that. And then we have the other side. It's like, well, if that's true, why the heck do people kill each other in the most gruesome, horrifying ways, like poor Sharon Tate and her friends? Why do we have human beings that obliterate entire nations? Genghis Khan, I was over in Mongolia, and Genghis Khan is a huge statue of Genghis Khan, which I went up to the top of. It's Genghis Khan over there. Anyway, I spent time in Mongolia. People were wonderful. Back in the day of Genghis Khan, they went and wiped out, God knows, millions of people. And then he instituted a good legal system after he became, as powerful as he did. He actually developed a very, very good legal and governmental system. But meanwhile, he killed a crap load of people. And so we see horrific stuff. I love Mexico. I spent a lot of time in Mexico. Lovely place. But there are cartels there. And I've watched the brutal videos of cartels for profiling purposes only. Horrific stuff to watch. Don't want to watch it. And I've dealt with seeing stuff of many homicides and serial killers and mass murders. I've seen way more than I want to see. And so I juxtapose it, like over here with the most amazing world, the beauty of it, nature, art, everything is amazing. And over here, we're just slaughtering the crap out of each other and enjoying doing things like cutting people's private parts off and sticking them in their mouths and thinking that's funny, and watching them and torturing them and ripping their skin off. What the hell? Because of that, we suffer confusion, and we want to know what's right and what's true and what's not true. And there we have Charlie, who has a criminal mind and a psychopathic mind, has spent a lot of time studying all kinds of different spiritual and psychological strategies. And he has mixed them up, just like I just did as a channeler. Now, mind you, do I think there's energy in the universe? Yes, I do. Do I think we have boundaries because of our bodies? Yes, I do. A lot of what I said was basically true, but most of it I just made up on the spot. Charlie was good at that. Channelers are good at that. I mean, I could have a channeling channel in a heartbeat, because you could ask me anything, I can channel on it. What about trees? What do they mean? Well, trees, they reach their roots deep into the earth. And that is what we as people need to do to be sure that we're stabilized. Because if we don't have strong roots, how are we going to deal with the strong winds that push us this way and that way? So it is necessary for us to implant roots. Now, we have to be careful what roots there are, because roots can become corrupted. So we want to be sure they're good roots. And then I can go on, and I will ask for your money. Charlie did the exact thing. So what he did was he's smart. So he took truths, he mixed them with questions, And he mixed it all up to the point where he had his followers who were lost and lonely being basically willing to accept the fact, and this is how he got them to commit some horrific crimes. First of all, they were all failures in life. And he made sure they knew they were failures. And he himself felt a failure, which he was. And up on the hills, people like Sharon Tate and those people that lived in the fancy houses, they had a level of success. Now, I'm not saying that the method of success that they got was through anything necessarily wonderful, that they were any more successful than perhaps a person who was a volunteer in their neighborhood caring for children and the elderly. That could be a finer life and a finer person. And they might live in a one-room shack and be a better person than the person up on the hill. They may be more successful. But the outward signs of success were those people on the hill. And so what he did was made sure that he turned those people into cockroaches. Those cockroaches up there, the reason you are where you are today. You are down here with me. And because those people have kept you down. And therefore, they are cockroaches, and you should go up there and wipe them out, because that will show them who they are. And since the universe is the universe, it won't matter if they're dead or alive, because they will. And I don't know what Charlie said, but he could just go on and say any of that shit. And then he could make up anything he wanted at any point in time to get them to think that if they did this thing, it would make them feel important, them feel like they'd done something incredible, something crazy, something wild. And they were big into wild and crazy. Wild and crazy gave them the feeling of being alive. So if they do wild and crazy and that kill all these people, they're alive and they're not. And watching them die might be a thrill. And again, getting into his head and getting into their heads is there's a level that you cannot possibly do it, because it's all a thing that happens in a period of time. And when I was out there 4 years later, I saw the kind of thinking that was going on in that period of time. And that's why in other countries, you can get people to join, to become terrorists, for example. You can get people to be a terrorist in a heartbeat. And when I was over in Egypt, I was doing the Cleopatra documentary. I was over there, and I thought to myself, the unemployment rate was skyrocketing. And I know Egyptians, you might have some things good going there, but it was depressing to me, because music was, and Egypt's one of the more enlightened, shall we say, Islamic countries. And I did wear hijab. I was hijabi when I was over there to do my work. And people treated me nicely, but the hope there was very limited. So, after a while you get bored and you're like, I'm sitting on a desert here and I got nothing to do. Give me a gun, give me a gun. I'll work with it. And that's maybe true for many other countries. And so you could, if you're down in Mexico, and Mexico has a wonderful culture. I would definitely live there. But if you're very, very poor there, and your chances of moving up in life aren't very good, and the cartel comes along and says, hey, you join us, you get to do these things. They're like, whatever, sure, why not? We see that in gangs in the United States of America. Gangbangers do the same thing. They have hopelessness in their life. Their neighborhoods are shit. It's not fun to wake up and you don't have a lot to believe in or look forward to. You're like, yeah, I'll get myself a handgun. I'll get myself some gold chains. I'll do whatever I got to do. Gets the ladies, and I don't care if I kill people. Makes me feel good. You're dead? I'm not. So you can expand this across the whole world. Every country has its issues that they deal with this kind of thing. So and it goes like this in different countries. So at one point in the country will be doing real well, and then it'll go like this, and it'll go well, it'll go like this. And then there's different areas that will have that. So at that point in time, 1969 in California, it was like a bad storm that came together, and Charlie just happened to be there, and those girls happened to be there, and Tex happened to be there, and what the hell? And so don't make more of it than it is. He was a con artist, a psychopath, decided he was going to pretend to be a guru. Now, mind you, there are gurus out there who care about the world and care about helping people, just like those ministers and people, priests and people in many kinds of religions that care about their flock. They do. And that's why I say don't go into religion stuff here with me, because that just makes me feel bad. Don't do that. Let's not be rude. People have different views on different religions and who's participating in them. But there are definitely the good people, the caring people, the people that would do anything to care for their people, their flock. So that exists across the world in every religion, but that he decided to be yogi like. He was being yogi like, or yogi light, bringing in some of the concepts of many religions and of kind of channeling kind of thing I just did. And people found him fascinating, and like he knew something that they didn't, that he knew, just like Jim Jones. Jim Jones knew it was going to be happening. And, they weren't doing well in the world, but Jim knows, Charlie knows, Pat Brown knows. And that's how it works. So you can erase all the silly CIA crap that they may have been. I say they may have been interested in the results. And I'm not saying they couldn't have done some experiments. I'm not saying that. But I don't see any ties to Charlie Manson. I think Charles Manson was just what he was. And it was a moment in time that he got the people to believe in him. And even some of those people didn't believe in him as much as you'd think they did, but they were perfectly willing to use him as a vehicle to do the things they wanted to do, to get the kick out of the things they wanted to get a kick out of. And I would say that, what's her phrase? Atkins. Holy crap. Atkins was probably, she's just as psychopathic as Charlie was. Now, she's the one that stabbed up Sharon Tate and enjoyed it. And the things she says about how Sharon's begging for the baby's life. And she's like, I don't care about you, bitch. You mean nothing to me. And that's what a lot of these people said, was those people meant nothing to them. So it didn't matter if they killed them. So when they come up for parole, we should say, you don't mean anything to us either. Stay where you are. Okay. All right, let me go check some of to feel special. I'm going to check your comments. That is basically my whole spiel today, but I want to check on your comments now. To feel special, yes. Now, here's the thing. Everybody does want to feel special. We do. I mean, it's not fun to be nobody. It's not fun to have nobody recognize you, your abilities, to care about you. We all want to be cared for and appreciated. And it's tough sometimes. It really is. You can have a crappy family. You could be in a town where, there's not much you can achieve in that town. You could have physical features that aren't terribly attractive. And so people like, and you can't get a date. And I'll tell you, as you get older, those things happen all the time. So poor people struggle with this stuff. People with disabilities, people who are elderly. There's a million ways you can not be appreciated in life. And it's a struggle sometimes to find some way to be appreciated. And the problem, sadly, is that sometimes the best way to be appreciated is to do just do things for other people, care about other people, because a lot of those people you care about are also underappreciated. And they're so thrilled you're caring about them. So there are ways that people have not become famous and not done terrible things and not ended up on the news, but they have been so cared about, so appreciated by the people they help. And I'm going to tell my aunt's story here, just because I love my aunt's story. So my Aunt Lily, who was not really my aunt, but we always called her Aunt Lily. And at Christmas, my grandmother would have these huge German Christmas Eves, even though she was Jewish. Anyway, so Aunt Lily never showed up for the dinner, but after the dinner, there was always a knock on the door. And after my grandmother took all the locks off, she'd walk in and she'd go, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. And she had a bottle of scotch and cookies that she made, these fantastic Ishla cookies. And she was so neat. And so after I was an adult, my grandmother passed away. I went to visit Lily in New York. She was in New York City. And she lived on a 5th floor walk up. And she was probably in her 60s at that time, maybe nearing 70, I'm not sure. And she had a 1-bedroom apartment, one of those real small walk-ups, and she had a cat, and she used to roll her own cigarettes and smoke them, and she was quite an interesting lady. And she had Khalil Gibran's book on the shelf. I remember that. And I didn't know much about her, except I always loved her. She was a very big, strong-looking German woman with kind of a short haircut. Her husband died. She left on the last boat out of Germany before some of the rest of the family ended up in concentration camps. And then she just lived on a pension her whole life. She didn't work after that. She never had kids. And she died. And I went to her memorial service, and I felt really bad because, she didn't have any kids and she didn't have a job. And I went because I felt it's a shame that, maybe, nobody will be here for her. I walked into this, it was a Presbyterian church, walked in, the place was freaking packed. I'm like, what the heck? It was packed. And the pastor got up and he started reading this eulogy from my Uncle Eric from Chicago. And he said, never before has a Jewish woman been celebrated in a Christian church. And everybody went, what? She's Jewish? We would have had it at the synagogue. Turned out that she had spent every day of her life walking the neighborhood and saying, how are you doing, Mr. Enshin? How is your foot doing? Can I bring you some bandages? How are you, Mr. Gutierrez? How are you doing? I bring you some soup. She helped all her neighbors for 40 freaking years. That's why the place was packed. That woman was appreciated. And she wasn't on TV, and she wasn't famous. She couldn't sing, not that I know of. She wasn't an actress. She lived in a 5th floor walk-up by herself with a cat. And she probably did more for people than I will ever do in my life. Amazing woman. She was appreciated. But see, a lot of people don't know you can do that to be appreciated and get enough happiness in life without doing all the other crazy stuff. Anyway, that's my little little story. Being a follower doesn't usually end well. That is correct. And Anilina, I'm trying to see how you pronounce it. I'm thinking Angelina, but no, you've added an extra word syllable in there. Anilina Jelena. Okay. In wars, lives mean nothing to the other side. That is true. It's sad how easy people can be led to think that. Yes, and All Quiet on the Western Front has a very, very impactful scene. I don't remember if I read the book or saw it in the movie, but I remember that this American ended up in he was in a foxhole with this German he had just stabbed or shot. And he looked in that German's pocket and he pulled out the guy looked like he's 18, both of them were 18. I think I know this has been years since I've seen it, so I may be making up the story wrongly, but he got his wallet out and he saw the picture of the guy's wife and child or whatever it was. And he realized that he killed somebody who he's taken away this person from the people who loved him. And he had no more desire to be in that war than he did. And it was just very, very meaningful scene. So that's a great movie, by the way, and book, All Quiet on the Western Front. Oh, thank you, Maria. I just, that impacted me so much when I went there because I had no clue. I because I only knew her from our family moments, and I had no idea what her life was like. And it really taught me something. Yeah, really. Oh, you saw the movie. Yeah, I thought it was too. I thought it was one. There's two movies, war movies I really like. That's one, and the other one is Hamburger Hill, in case you're looking for another war movie. We should all be like your aunt. Yeah. I think if more people were that way, we'd have a better world. Should I start singing? But yeah, but there are a great many people that are like that, and that's the whole conundrum again. We have all these people over here who are just the kindest, most incredible people, and then we got the killers over here. It's like, how do we have both? And that's where the confusion comes in, and that's where people seek to understand, and they have such a difficult time understanding that sometimes there's good ways to understand enough to live life well and to be kind and good. And then there's people who go off the deep end trying to understand things in a way that is probably unhealthy. and there are people who will definitely take advantage, because I started my channeling channel. I'd make about 10 times to 100 times more money than just doing this. So, and the channeler, they do. That's what they make a lot of money. And I'm not against meditation, mind you. I meditate quite well myself. I'm not against meditation. I'm not against gaining some kind of knowledge through meditation. I'm against charlatans and con artists, and that's what they often are, especially when they say they're talking to your deceased uncle. Yeah, sure they're. Anna says some ancient civilizations believed they're responsible for the sun rising every day. Yeah, so they sacrifice people. Yeah. I mean, again, we don't actually know what they actually did and why they did that. We don't know if the people they sacrificed people they wanted to get rid of anyway. Could have been their enemies, could have been prisoners. I don't really know that. But you think if they wanted to bring the sun up every day, maybe they could do something good before they went to bed so that the sun would want to come up again. But let's see what else you have to say here. What, really? That's true? Man, I have not heard this. Yeah, interesting. I don't know if he was or wasn't, but he had a lot of issues. There's no question about it. Yeah. Oh, don't believe the Daybell. She's a psycho. What a psychopath. Yeah, she's lying. A lot of times they're just lying. Okay, to understand that, I don't think Lori Daybell, she was a psychopath and a half. She did lying. Just because somebody says this is what they believe and this is why they did it, don't believe them. They're psychopaths. They are pathological liars, and they like to excuse themselves from what they did. So you have to be very careful about that. That's where they use that, especially when it comes to court time. If they can get people to think that they did something because they were somehow they're mentally off because they believed in religious stuff or some weird alien stuff or whatever they decided to believe in, they can get off on a murder charge, maybe go to the mental hospital and then suddenly be cured of their beliefs. I just got back on. What the hell is Pat on? I don't know. Yeah, I have to point out, since you're all still here, I wanted to point this out and I forgot to do it. The psychedelics and the drugs in general, they do warp your mind. Now, it's interesting. Alcohol, although it can be a very dangerous thing and can ruin people's lives and everything that's bad about alcohol, it makes people either relaxed, or it makes people stupid, or it makes people aggressive, but it doesn't necessarily change reality. Smoke weed, reality does change. And once upon a time when weed was mild, it only changed a little bit. Now the weed's so strong, I don't know what the hell's happening with this stuff. But weed can change your viewpoint of reality. And if you smoke weed a lot, it will change your viewpoint of reality in general. People don't like to admit it, but it's just reality. Reality is, yeah. I only smoked weed a small amount when I was in my 19, 20, 21-year-old time. But I do remember. I remember sitting on a couch and thinking how amazing it was that how do I get up off the couch? That the gravity issue was fascinating. That I had to try to figure out how I was actually going to stand up because reality had changed. We all know that with weed, time changes. The time goes completely wacko. It's not the same time. So there's a lot of things that happen on weed that are a distortion of reality. LSD I've never touched in my life, but I would never touch that crap. So that distorts things a lot. So that's why the CIA and Charlie would like that, because it takes them to a different place. So they believe in a different reality. Now, doesn't reality exist or doesn't it? That's a good question. I'm a very big dreamer. I'm a lucid dreamer, and sometimes, I mean, the stuff I've enjoyed in dreams has been very real, very different real. Is that a real world? I don't know. It feels real when I'm there. Uh, and sometimes I've even come back from that world and I feel like really sad because I'm no longer with that person I was with. I mean, I'm like heartbroken. I haven't been heartbroken in real life, but wherever I'm at now, some people say that world exists. It's a real world, not just a enactment in my brain, but it's a real world. People believe that, that's what they believe. And I have had some experiences with it, which are so unique that I can't explain them. All right. People who have near-death experiences do believe that they left their bodies and went someplace and they've said that changed their life forever because their perception of life, because they absolutely believe there's life after death. And they said it wasn't like a dream. It wasn't something vague. They were there and they believe it. They have seen a different reality. Now, did they or didn't they? I hope they did. I hope that some of my lucid dreaming is a portal to some other part of the world that is not included in my body. And I have also been successful with meditation, at having a moment where I experienced something that was very real and was very meaningful, but I cannot prove what it actually was. And I'm realistic enough to say I can't prove what it is. I'm hoping what it is what I would like it to be, but that's without drugs. Now, with drugs, people get those same kind of very, very extreme experiences with another reality. And the question is, if they see that other reality and they believe it's there, then this reality becomes less important, less meaningful, and less necessary. So, thank you. Oh, damn it. I forgot to mention that. Oh, thank you. When I do these shows, I do not have notes. And from the beginning of the show, I wanted to say, think of wilding. Yes, actually what they did was a wilding. Wilding is a time when you get to experience a high level of excitement where you can go crazy and wild and do the most horrific things and then think it's a big fat thrill. It is one of the earliest versions of a wilding. So the Tate murders especially was a wilding. And we see other versions of wildings that have happened with groups of people that get together and together decide usually they pick one person. We're going to get together and we're going to ask this, teenage girl, hey, you want to go hang out and smoke some weed? And the girl says, sure. And she meets them in the woods and then they torture and brutalize her and kill her. And they get a big cheap thrill out of it. 4 or 5 people. Thank you for bringing that up. I meant to go there because I think this is more of a wilding than anything else. But it comes with some whatever Charlie threw into the little wilding bowl and mixed up and made his magic potion. Yeah, he added something. Thank you for that. Anna Lisette, new research on psychedelic drugs show they encourage a neuroplasticity. Perhaps old connections are broken and remodeled, maybe with the guidance of a psychiatrist or cult leader. Very, very possible. But the people don't know what the truth is and what the truth isn't. This is the same thing as recovered memories. Recovered memories is very dangerous when people, go to a psychiatrist and they go under and then they start having these visions of this is what happened to me. You can do the same thing with past life experiences, where they take you into your past life, and then is it true or isn't it true? Are you making this shit up? Are you a creative thinker? Are you channeling your own past life to yourself, or is your past life really a past life? And I honestly can't say yes or no. And also the other thing I can't say is this is true and this is not true. So just because one person, let's say there's a successful past life experiences, that person can actually go under and remember a past life, and it's true. Let's say that were true. Doesn't mean these are true. So, and all because these are all false. There could be 20 false ones. Could this one be true? We're not going to know. And we may have an experience and we may believe our experience is accurate, but we don't know, because it's these things are very hard to prove. Now, I will admit, I did a past life thing once just because out of just amusement. And what happened was kind of creepy and weird. So they did the little hypnotic-y thing, and then they're like, "Okay, where are you?" I'm like, "I'm in the middle of a forest, and I got these moccasins on my feet." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm gonna do the Native American crap. How boring." I mean, otherwise I do Cleopatra, which I wrote a book on. But hey, everybody's past life is Cleopatra, not I was a worked in a brothel in Peru. Suddenly you're somebody famous, but I wasn't. But a Native American thing, so popular. So I did that, and then they said, "Where are you?" And I said I was in a place that was flat, and there was this. I was very depressed, and I was depressed because my uncle was telling me I had to marry this other guy, who was then going to leave the area. And I got depressed and went home and killed myself, stabbed myself in the chest with a knife. That was my little. Now, did I make that crap up? Well, it seemed like I'm a writer, but I was never interested in Native American stuff. It just wasn't my thing. India, yes, but not America, India. No, just I was always into Indian culture in India. And people say, "Oh, you were past life. You were in India because you wear saris and you eat with your hands." I'm very comfortable in India, so maybe I did have a past life. I never felt comfortable with Native American stuff for whatever reasons. And but I ended up calling up an expert, and it's a Native American Institute, somebody in D.C., and I said, "Look, my great grandmother, or the story passed down, I just want to know if it has any validity." And I said she was supposed like in Indiana or something, and she said that she was forced to get married. Her uncle was forced to get married because her father had died and like drowned or something. He goes, "Oh yeah, well if the father died, the uncle would take over the family." I'm like, "Oh crap, okay, that's true then." Okay, I said, but she was going to have to marry this guy and then they'll leave the area. And he goes, "Well, at that time," because I had a date, that time they were moving. Some of the tribes were forced to go west, and you couldn't marry within your own tribe. You had to marry the next tribe to prevent incestuous stuff. And so he said she would have been forced to marry a guy in the next tribe, and that tribe was probably going west. I'm like, "Oh no, that's true too." I said, "Okay, so she went home and stabbed herself with a knife. Why would she do that?" He goes, "Well, if there's no cliff to jump off of, and there's no, yeah, that would be the normal way." I'm like, now to this day, do I know there's any truth to that my past life was once a Native American girl and that killed herself in Indiana? No. Did I just make up a story in my head that just happened to match history? I never was a big reader of that kind of history. So, or what? I don't know. That's the whole point. I don't know. And so that's the thing. Something could be true, but just because it could be true doesn't mean it is true. And we shouldn't also knock it that it couldn't be true. So what do I know? So anyway, that's so that's the problem. People, the elasticity of the brain. Where do we get information from? Do we store information from childhood? Like when I dream at night, I dream constantly. I mean, I have ongoing stuff. I'm a very busy dreamer. I can wake up, I go back into the dream. I've always been that way. But I'm like, where do I get these dreams from? How do I have Technicolor dreams in a place with all these people? They have names. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm sleeping. How do I create that level of full motion picture? I mean, I can't do it. If I try to daydream, I suck at it. I mean, I try for a minute. I'm like, okay, okay. I get distracted. Why can't I come up with that kind of thing when I'm awake? Why is it always when I sleep, I come up with that level of, it's crazy to me. I don't understand dreaming, and nobody seems to study it. So, but that has the mind. What does the mind do? I don't know. When you put things into the mind, drugs and other things that you do to the mind, what does that do to the mind? Is it temporary, or does it permanently change pathways? And we probably don't know. All of those things. What is that? All the Project Monarch. Well, again, this is what the claim is, that the government is purposely doing this stuff. I don't see any of that. There seems to be no connections with Charles Manson. I just think found his little group, and they he's got something. And people, you can look at him and think that when you hear him in the jail, you're like, wow, that dude's just nuts, man. And the big eyes and all that stuff. And some people say he smelled bad, and he wasn't that tall, and he was just, why would they go for him? I don't know. I have to say he had something. He was smart. He was quick on his feet thinking. He was very manipulative, and he could sing. And he did the Jesus look basically at some point. He said in the beginning he really didn't have that long hair and everything, but then all you have to do is find the right people. Now, mind you, he doesn't mean that every person would have liked him. They're like, oh, you dude. Now, he hung out with the Beach Boy guy, and why? I think drugs was a big deal of it. Some people just like drugs and girls, and he brought drugs and girls. I mean, it's like, yeah, hang out with it. Some people just don't have very high standards. So that's a good point. Daybell crimes are blamed on religion, but the motives sure look like basic old-fashioned greed and lust. Could very well be. Dreaming is your escape. During COVID, I was so bored that I wake up in the morning and go, oh, I might as well go back to sleep. I'm having so much fun when I'm asleep. I was hanging out with people. I was going to parties. I was having a great time when I was asleep. And then I'd wake up and go, I'm stuck in the house. So, yeah, sometimes that's true. Wait. During sleep, our brain processes info, creates memory, nothing special. Maybe nothing special to you, but I'm busy all night long, and it's very special. I can't believe the stuff that my brain does when I'm asleep. I've never understood. I've been that way since I was a kid. I just, I'm very, very busy. Very busy. And again, I can do lucid dreaming, which is where you actually know you're dreaming. And I can do induced lucid dreaming, where you actually are awake and your body goes to sleep, but your brain stays there. So you go into the dream totally aware of what you're doing, and you can pick what you want to do in the dream. Mostly people pick eating chocolate and sex, but you can pick other things, but no, I find that fascinating. And I've always just very, very interested in how the brain works, because I don't find it mundane at all, but very little is studied about the brain. And and dreaming, I'm not quite sure why, but people apparently don't want the regular brain. That's why they do drugs, to take them out of their normal lives and to experience a different reality. And that becomes concerning when it conflicts with a healthy reality. It's one thing if it's beneficial to you. It's another thing if you become a cult member, or you lose everything you're doing to something that is a pipe dream in a sense, or a pipe drug dream, whatever it is, a dream from a pipe. That's problematic. Oh, yeah, shrooms. Yeah. Lion mane mushrooms are also a great way to have neurogenesis without the psychedelic effect. Creates new pathways and repairs damaged pathways. So they claim. I'm sorry. I'm not fond of drugs in any way, shape, or form. I find them concerning. And I find a lot of claims that these things help, all these things. I'm just going to say, for me, I'm going to wait to see if there's any proof of this stuff, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that's being promoted right now in the shroom category, shall we say. You have a dream diary. You can only remember every 5 days or so. Interesting. I mean, I don't remember everything as time goes on, but I find it kind of interesting that one thing I do is that I can be in a dream and wake up and forget what that dream is, take a walk to the kitchen, get a glass of water, come back, get in bed. As soon as I close my eyes, I'm right back in the dream. So I don't understand it. My sister doesn't dream at all. She's like, I never dream. A lot of people don't dream at all. They're like, I don't remember a damn thing. Or if they dream, it's only because they had a scary dream or something really boring. But I'm just busy, busy, busy. That's why you wake up in the morning. I'm like, I'm so tired. I've been busy all night. Weed cures cancer, according to potheads. Yeah, everybody's got their beliefs. And this is the point, is that we're not here to stomp on people's beliefs. And not everything that Charlie said was wrong. There's a mix of truth and wishful thinking, or truth and not so truthful. Everything gets mixed together. And that's where people get confused, because if the one thing seems true to them, then they're concerned that something else isn't. They believe the other thing must be true too. It's not so. I mean, you can have a person you can say, oh, that person really cares about other people. And then they do something that you find despicable. How does that go together? Yeah. So life is not that clear cut. Dreaming after go to the bathroom, by the way, is a real problem, especially if you find the bathroom. As I say, when you find the bathroom, Don't use it. Don't use it. I'm going back up here to see some of your comments. Did I already comment? Let's see, where am I at here? I don't know if I said thank you, Molly, but thank you, Molly. That's very, very generous. I can't remember who I clicked on, but thank you. Let's see. Oh, the polygamous cults. Yeah, that's an interesting lost tribe. I like in the Manson girls 2 women who go along with polygamous cults. Polygamous cults are a very weird thing too. That's a good point. Why do people want to have sister wives? Why is that acceptable to them? And you can, there can be good reasons why it's acceptable. If the guy, the husband has a lot of money, and there's not a lot of guys to go around, there's some advantages. You get to be married. You get to have children. You get to have sex, but not enough to annoy you. Like all the, you get some breaks, and then you get sisters to help you take care of children. Actually, I might do that. That sounds good to me. Usually the first wife is the one that gets pissed off because she's the one that has the strongest relationship. The rest come in kind of knowing what the deal is. So, but yeah, but then again, who is this guy? Who is this guy that is alluring enough and can offer this enough stuff for everybody to want to be with the one guy? That's kind of interesting and kind of creepy. So let's see. By the way, if I haven't said thank you if you gave me a super sticker, I apologize. I just can't. I can't hardly see everything that's going on here. Oh, that's okay. Meth raging. I can't remember. I didn't know if the meth. I couldn't remember if meth was around them. But yes, there's a good point there. There was an issue about speed. I'm glad you brought that up. Speed. The one advantage speed has, or disadvantage. If you take speed, not only do you not need food, but you get very energized. And when you get energized, it isn't so much that it takes away whether things are right or wrong, but it gives you so much power, a feeling of excessive power, that there is a desire to just do. So when you have that kind of excessive power and energy, then things are fun to do. And it's better if you use speed to clean your house, but killing people should be off the table. But it does probably take away any real, the mind is moving so fast, there isn't time to say, hey, maybe I shouldn't do this. It's wrong. It's horrible. What this person is sad. So yeah, it's hard to even say. If you hear a dog in the background now, the next door just let the dogs out to go to the bathroom. They know I have a show from 4 to 6, and it's now 5:58, so the dogs are barking. So I'm going to close the show because the dogs are barking, but I just want to check a couple more of your comments while they're barking. Oh, thank you, Caitlin. Thanks for the wild ride. This is my favorite subject matter. Oh, I'm glad. I mean, it wasn't what I think a lot of people expected for me to talk about all the actual crimes, but I think the psychology was just, to me, what interested me, especially with the movie that came out. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I still recommend that, even though half the people love it and half the people absolutely hate it. But I liked it. I did. I liked it a lot. It just, maybe because I was in Hollywood, and I was there about the same time, so it brought back a lot of memories. But it did help me remember what it was like then too. The whole kind of, I was never a hippie, but I remember that whole era, the music and the people, and some of the crazy way they behaved because they were just acting in a certain manners. Just like we act in certain manners today. And 20 years from now, we'll look back and say, man, we acted like that in 2025. Oh, I mean, now my kids are 40 and they're, of course, talking about the 80s and 90s as if those are the best times ever. So, we all have our time. And so I was 70s more than I was 60s. So I kind of was on that tail end of that, but I never was much of a hippie. But I saw it being right out there, living in Hollywood. I mean, I saw it around me. And sometimes I just watch, like, just to see somebody walk across the street or car go by. And I just get this eerie feeling of, oh my God, I know what it felt like. I know what that feels like. I know what it felt like to be around about around how stars and stuff, what it was like to be near them. And if anybody, one of the funniest things I ever did was check out my video on when I was on the set of I was with Tommy. Oh shoot, shoot, I'm drawing blank. Cheech and Chong, Tommy Chong. So I was on the set of Cheech and Chong, and I was in the bed with Tommy Chong, and under the covers with Tommy Chong as part of a scene that I was a lump, and the girl who was the actress was getting her hair done. So they were filming me just being the lump, and I did a show on that, a video on that. So check that one out. But so I was there, and it wasn't a successful part of there, but I met a lot of the girls. I saw things that happened. I met the people. I saw the drugs. All of that was there. And so it was very eerie for me to watch the movie. It's like, oh, I'm not doing a psychedelic drug special, which I never did. So I was always a person who was scared of anything psychedelic. I'm like, I never put anything in my body that I thought was going to kill me. So I drank some alcohol and I smoked some regular weed back in the day when the weed wasn't contaminated. But then I think the last time I touched that was 40 years ago, almost 50 years ago, 50 years ago. Haven't touched a thing since. I got married, had children, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that stuff. But I never did I never touched cocaine or LSD or any of that stuff. Purple haze, I remember, was popular at the time. And I was like, I'm not touching anything where the next minute, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. It creeped me out. I was like, nah. So yeah, that's the most I ever did. Sky Ricky, you're back. Thank you very much. I don't know how the best I am, but I appreciate it very, very much. There are people who would disagree with that, and how much a long-term effect it has, I don't know. And I say this is not a place where I'm going to argue over, the good and bads of everything. Again, this is the whole point. We have these varying opinions, and how do you balance them out? And when things come together, do they collide and cause a third thing? This reality, that reality, and then this reality, and then is that where everything goes to hell? It's really, quite frankly, hard to determine. So, wait a minute. Olga says, you should do a follow-up video on how to spot the cult danger and prevent your kids from joining one on your Dear Profiler Pat channel. That's a good question. How to keep your kids from joining one of those. In case you're wondering what the Dear Profiler Pat channel is, I forgot to mention it, which I should, because I need to promote my stuff. I really do. I do have a Dear Profiler Pat channel, which is like Dear Abby, but more me. And I'll link it below. So where I do my Charlie thing and I tell you how you should live your life. Let me get Crazy Eyes back. Oh, Lord. Movies imprinted. Heavenly Creatures. Heavenly Creatures. Oh, that was interesting movies. Movies imprinted on my brain. I'm not sure if that's the one you're talking about, but that was a whole different thing. That was Folie à deux. So anyway, okay, I gotta stop now. I'm gonna go make myself some dinner and relax. And but thank you all for being here, and thank you for allowing me to be chaotic in doing this, because that is the way I am normally anyway. I've always done stream of consciousness type of thing, and I write the same way. And I know some people don't like it. They're like, Pat, you need to have an outline. You need to do things more properly. And I'm like, yeah, maybe another channel for you would be a good idea, because I can't fix myself at this point. Oh my God. It says, it's been 2 months since I caught a live. Life got crazy. Mom passed. Sorry to hear that. And I'm glad you're back too. I said, I don't do too many open lives, but thank you. Tina says, I like the Dear Pat. They're more detailed and thought-provoking than a quick answer. Yeah, I do tend to talk too long anyway. So again, It's just me. I should have been a cult leader. I think I would have done well. But thank you, Lady Jane. Thank you for being here, Christoph. Thanks, Pam. I'm so glad you were here. Y'all were. Oh, you're great. Don't change. I have no way to do it. I don't. That's one of the Dear Pats. Maybe I'll do Dear Pat. Can I change? Probably not. Yes, I am a Leo too. Guru Pat. Yeah, this might make this. I could then go off into the sunset with a big load of cash and live on, live on in a big house in Greece or something. Anyway, thank you guys for being here again. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Don't let me down. And I will see you all for all of you who are patrons. The link below. I will see you for the normal hangout. That is going to be on Wednesday at 3 or 4 p.m., something like that. And so I will definitely see you then. And we'll talk about whatever we have to talk about. The cases. Well, we usually hangouts basically talking about the different news items of the week, or cases that I don't have too much to go into depth. I want to say something about, and so that's what I do those. But check my hangouts too. They're one of the playlists. So I have the case file playlist and the hangout playlist. I have a whole playlist on Cleopatra because I wrote a book on Cleopatra, and I did 10 parts of a Cleopatra, just talking about how Cleopatra was murdered and she didn't commit suicide, and all about her history and life and all that. So I have these different playlists. Check them all out, and I will see you next time. Bye.